Sebastian, it's lovely to have you here. I've taken the gut health tests, and I must say I'm rather disappointed. The results were really low. I mean, what the heck happened?
To me, the results are quite intriguing. They're partly surprising to me, and part of the test makes perfect sense.
Sebastian, you and we were together this summer when I had my project, Norway's 377 2,000 meter peaks. And you joined me on the first stage. We had a blast. It was tiresome. It was wonderful. We had everything from thunder showers to sunny Stoke days.
Third summit for today. Whoop. I mean, like this.
Who are you and what are you doing?
Sebastian, 39 years old, father of a 3-year-old. I work at Zinzino as a product manager where I'm responsible for our tests. My background is in marketing, and I moved over to product development at Zinzino. And on the side, I love everything action sports. So from surfing, kite surfing, snowboarding, whatever it takes, and also mountaineering. So it was a blast this summer to join with you, Frederick.
And we have upcoming adventures. You guys are watching this. Sebastian and I were joining the PTL in Chamonix, the 300-kilometer run across the Alps in August. I'm really looking forward to that. How's the training coming along, Sebastian?
Well, we did the race together about a month ago. So that was good to get. We did a 100K race. That was good to get that as a training part for what's coming. After that, I've actually had some issues with my cough, and then I've been sick for a couple of weeks. So I'm behind my training schedule, but I'll catch up.
Sure, we will. Now I'm intrigued and I'm really interested learning what is the gut health test?
The gut health test is essentially looking at something called tryptophan metabolism. And that is how tryptophan, which is it's an amino acid that's part of protein that you eat. Proteins are normally used, or what people think of is that that's normally used for building muscles. But the body uses protein, and when protein is broken down to these amino acids in many different ways. And one that has gotten a lot of attention lately and a lot of science is being looked at is tryptophan and how that is used in the body. So in the blood, we measure tryptophan and then looking at which pathway it takes. So how much of it is going into kynurenine, which is essentially how much immune stress your body is under. And we also look at how much of tryptophan goes through your microbiome and produces something called IPA, which is a really good proxy for how your microbiome is doing, how diverse it is. And instead of just looking at what bacteria is in the gut, we use this IPA because then we can see that not just that they're there, but that they are doing what they are supposed to do to support our body.
So why is this important? Why are we taking this gut health test in the first place?
Because the microbiome consists of trillions and trillions of cells. It's bacteria, it's different microbes. And through evolution, we have evolved where we as the host feed the microbiome, and the microbiome in turn do multiple things for our health. And the scientific community are still just scratching the surface on how important the microbiome is, because this symbiotic relationship is critical to our health, where, for example, 70% of our immune cells are in the gut. So depending on how the microbiome is doing, that will influence our overall health. And we see connection to brain health, you see connection to overall metabolism, immune health, and so on.
Is our modern way of life affecting the gut health, would you say, negatively?
Yes, I think it should come to no surprise to people that that is the case. When you go and speak to people, every other person has issues with their gut in one way or another. It's important to know, though, that what we are looking at is the microbiome part of it. There are other, when you talk about the gut, there can be other things that people have issues with as well. But here for the microbiome and how connected that is to the body, it's an extremely important part. And we see that as we shift our diet, as we have issues with sleep, as we gain weight, as we don't move on a regular basis, and so on, all these things affect the microbiome and the health of that. And then in turn creates downstream issues for us.
So how would you conduct the test? How is it performed?
You order a test that's being mailed to you. And then the big difference from other tests for Zinzino is that we are looking at what's happening in the blood. So essentially what the microbiome has done that transfers to your body. Whereas most other tests, you take a stool sample, so you need to go to the toilet, it can be a bit messy, and then you send that stool sample in. But that stool sample only tells you which bacteria was there and what they've been doing in the stool, but not necessarily what has transferred to your body. So we take it one step further and look at what has these bacteria actually produced. Important is that when you take this test, it's a snapshot of what things are looking like right now. So you need to do an overnight fast, so 10 hours, and then take the test in the morning before you eat to get a standardized environment to compare with in the future. And then you prick your finger, you drop 2 big drops of blood on 2 different circles. You send those into a laboratory in Norway called Vitas Laboratory, a very known laboratory and very renowned laboratory in in the scientific community. And then they analyze the blood and will have your results.
Let's not wait any further. Let's just dive into it. Please, let's go through the results and let's try to analyze why I suck at this.
All right, so here is Frederick's gut health test. We have our overall index, and this is essentially an aggregate of the different results that you get through the test. And this is to easily understand how it's looking. And I want to be very clear so that people are aware of that. All the reference values are in relation to a healthy population. And then we look at different dietary patterns and so on and create cutoffs. But if you have a low index, as in Frederick's case, that doesn't mean that you're sick. It just means that in relation to other healthy populations, you are below what we see in people with a healthy diet and what the expected outcome would be.
And what would be the percentage, the overall health index for an average healthy person?
So an average healthy person, you will be at around 70%. If you have a good fatty acid profile and if you have a diet high in dietary fiber, that you get enough antioxidants through polyphenols and so on, so that you have a good gut environment, then around 70%. And then we see that the top 25%, they get above 85. So the main thing that I look at when it comes to this test is IPA level. And IPA level is essentially how much IPA your microbiome is able to produce. And for a low fiber diet, we often see around 1 to 1.2 in IPA. Frederick is down to 0.3.
That puzzles me because my diet, if we make the exception for our Norwegian trip this past summer, is based on lots of greens, lentils, legumes, fibers as the Zinzino Zinbiotic. I use different kind of seeds. I have carrots and vegetables in every single meal. I eat plenty of fruits, etc. I mean, for me to elevate this level, I would need to become full on herbivore and eating grass and eating uh, nuts and eating fibers all day long, perhaps even chewing on trees. That's what rotates around my mind. Do I need to change my diet radically in order to elevate this figure?
Knowing you, and I know some of the background, this makes sense. And this is why I think this test is so powerful. I also need to say, I'm not a doctor, so that people understand that this is not diagnostics, this is guidance. But from a diet point of view, you can't do much better than you do. I know that you have an incredible diet. I also know that in the past, you had some health challenges that has likely altered your microbiome. In that case, if you have killed parts of your microbiome and that microbiome is not able to recover well from it, you can start to see these effects where you have a perfect diet, but the diet is not able to help the microbiome properly because it's likely that you are missing species that is important for it. So in this case, what you can do is that you can start to focus more on fermented foods. And this is not anything that Zinzino is providing today, but I would look into potential strategies around probiotics to see if you can add different bacterial strains to support the microbiome. There are also other things you can do, but these then you need to speak to healthcare professionals and seek guidance on, because there are fecal transplants and things like that, that in certain instances can be beneficial. And I do know that you struggle with your immune system. And knowing your diet and how good that is, knowing how much of the immune cells are in the gut, and seeing how poorly, to be honest, you respond or your microbiome responds to maybe that would be something to look into.
So then we have the microbiome immune support result, and we also have the gut microbiome efficiency and immune stress.
Yes.
What are these three different markers? What do they tell us?
Microbiome immune support. This is essentially when we look at a ratio between your IPA, which supports your body, and kynurenine. That is a stressor or a stress response that your body has. And then if your kynurenine is high, you can remedy some of that by a higher IPA level. So this is that ratio. But because your IPA is so low, you'll get a poor result here. But for others that has a higher IPA level, even if their kynurenine is a little higher, that can balance itself there. Gut microbiome efficiency is how much of the available tryptophan in your body is used for IPA production. So how much of the tryptophan goes through the gut, and the bacteria in that gut uses that to produce IPA. So how efficient is it? And then immune stress is how much of the tryptophan goes through the kynurenine pathway. And this was actually part of the test that I was surprised about. Because I know I would I would call it excessive training and how much load you put on your body. But I'm impressed that your body seems to handle that like a champ. So you have for sure adapted to that amount of training. You seem to get sufficient recovery from it. So I was really impressed by that part of the test.
There is
No,
some
no,
light in the tunnel.
yeah, and if we look at the different metabolites on their own, we can see that tryptophan is exactly where you want it. Kynurenine is exactly where you want it. So all of these are great. It's just that your microbiome doesn't respond to the diet that you have. And for the majority of people, that is due to poor diet. But they have the bacteria there so that if they get a more supportive diet through omega-3s, polyphenols, through dietary fibers, so that is essentially eating a lot of leafy greens, fruits and vegetables, beans, lentils, and so on, then you will support that part and you'll get a higher IPA level. But in your case, you don't respond to that even though you have a great diet. So yeah, I would try looking at probiotics. We can discuss that more later on between you and me. We can I would also look at fermented foods and to increase those. I don't know how much fermented foods you eat today.
Not very much.
So that could be something to look at, and you can make it yourself, or if you go to the store, just make sure that the fermented foods that you buy, that they still have living cultures in them. So fermented foods, for those that do not know, that's essentially foods that have living bacteria in it. And this is yogurt, sauerkraut, you have kombucha, kimchi, tofu, and so on. Kefir is another common one.
And then there's a ton of information remaining in this thorough and comprehensive document for those who are nerdy and want to indulge themselves in the science and analysis. If people take these tests, is it possible that they can be advised and guided with an Zinzino expert who can help them to translate these markers?
Yes, so we have our partners that help out. We also have videos online to help guide and help to how to read the report, for example. And then we have a lot of information on the webpage, so zinzinotest.com, both when it comes to what a test is, and if you really want to dig into it, we have many layers that gets quite detailed and quite technical. But we also have a lot of information on diet health, what is driving the different factors, and how are the different markers calculated, and so on. So full transparency on what we've done. And we've done this because the test is quite novel. So using this and getting this out to people, we find it very powerful. But since it's novel, it's also important to be transparent. This is what the test is. This is what the test is not. These are the assumptions that have been made. And that is why the test is like this.
So for those who are curious, it's quite simple. Just contact me, or you can contact the Zinzino partner, and You can order the tests online at zinzino.com. When would it be appropriate for me to take the next test? If I start eating more fermented food, I improve my probiotics, etc. When do you think I would see some results, and when would I take the next test?
We recommend 120 days, but to be honest, if you do positive changes, you can see effects quite rapidly, because the microbiome is part of the microbiome is fast responding. So if you're really keen on seeing, does it work for me? You can take a test within a month or so and see the changes. But we recommend 120 days because parts of the microbiome adapts fast, but parts of the microbiome takes time. So the more consistent you are and the more time you give it, the more the full microbiome will adapt. So if you make a lifestyle or dietary change, it's good to give it some time so that you see the full effect of an intervention that you do.
Thank you very much for guiding us through this incredibly enlightening session. I was a bit shocked, honestly, when I saw the results at the first time. But when you're now putting this into words and the analysis, there is hope and there is light in the end of the tunnel. I for sure will do and implement some changes in both my dietary and my life. And I think it's crucial for me to stay healthy and to act more responsive to stress when I'm traveling abroad, where the hygiene and also the water is perhaps not the cleanest. I've had some troublesome experience with that in the past. So I'm really looking forward to this journey. So I think that people who take this test and they receive a poor result, don't be dismayed. It is marker that there is some room for improvement. And actually, you're the commander of your life. And I think if you receive this result and you're a bit shocked, at least you know, and now you can do something about it. So my last question to you, Sebastian, is that if we would see in the world a better gut health environment in people, what changes would that do to mankind? I know this is a very broad and big question, but how would people's lives transform, you think?
Oh, so the gut is connected to so many things in the body. It's essentially, my boss usually says that the gut is the center of the body universe. So if it's not right there, it's not right anywhere. And there is a lot of truth to that. What I would say, people struggle with so many different things today. We have a lot of non-communicable diseases. Type 2 diabetes is classified as a pandemic by the World Health Organization today. And like we see these effects. And if we can get people back to eating good whole foods, that will solve so many things. Food is such a powerful tool for our health. It's important for our mental health. It's important because the body's so resilient, so we can do the wrong thing for a long time, but eventually something breaks. And this is where we want to intervene early. And that's why we work with preventative health so that we can see these things. Okay, it doesn't look amazing, but there's still time to do something for it. And if we do that, that would create less strain on the healthcare system. We would age healthier. We would have more energy. Like we would have more of the body mass would be lean body mass, as opposed to all the adipose tissue and things we see, which creates a lot of inflammation and so on in the body. So eating healthy will transform lives. And what I would like to say, though, so that people don't get confused, Fredrik is an anomaly. Most people, when they have a poor IPA result, that is due to that people overestimate the amount of dietary fiber that they eat. So the recommendation is to eat 30 grams of fiber. It's quite easy today to look up how much in food that is on a daily basis. And it is to eat 20 to 30 different sources of dietary fiber on a weekly basis. So that essentially means 20 different sources of fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, and so on per week. And then you'll get a lot of different dietary fibers in your food, and your microbiome will thank you for it. And when the microbiome thanks you for it, it will support your body and your health.
Lovely ending, Sebastian. Thank you very much for your time and contribution. See you soon.
See you. Looking forward to the summer.
All right, let's do it.